What's up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of Let's Talk Marketing with In-Depth Podcast, where I'm your host, Nathan Webster, and I'm excited to chop it up with you today. Today, we have a special guest, and I want to apologize to all my guests. I've been giving you the wrong numbers, y'all. I'm sorry. I've just been moving so fast, and I didn't. One of my team members says, Nathan, we are on the wrong one. I was like, oh, shoot, my bad. So I'm not going to, I don't know if I'm going to give any more numbers, maybe when we get caught up. But I got a special guest with me. We're going to talk about a marketing agency. We're going to talk about the recession, which means we're going to talk about the economy. We may talk about a little bit of politics, and we're also going to talk about small business. So without further ado, Don, Elliott, welcome to the show.
Hey, Nathan. Great to be here.
Absolutely. So before I get into the show, I just want to make sure I do my housekeeping for all you first-time listeners. Thank you for downloading the show. Thank you for listening. If you love the show, don't be scared to hit that subscribe button. Download it on a regular basis. And for my worldwide listeners that continue to rock with me all the time for the last 7 years, thank you so much for continuing to show me love. Without you, I could not do this show. I wouldn't want to do this show either. So, if you rate and review the show, I'll give you a t-shirt, but you have to follow the instructions. Give the rating with the review, take a screenshot of it, Snapchat it, or I shouldn't say Snapchat of it. Take a snapshot of what you're doing. Send it to me at the email at info@nwebsterllc.com, and I'll be more than happy to get you that t-shirt BU swag. All right, now that the housekeeping is done, let's get into the meat and the potatoes of today's session with Mr. Don Elliott. So I'm not going to steal your thunder, Don, as sometimes I forget to properly introduce people, but can you please tell the listeners who you are and what you do?
Yeah. So I'm Don Elliott. I'm the president and owner of Gravitate. We're a digital marketing agency here in downtown Vancouver. I've been in the creative space and marketing industry for about 25 years and a business owner for about 20. And that's really about it. Nothing else is interesting.
Okay, y'all, he's not giving you was very interesting about Don. See, this is why sometimes I gotta give you a little bit more context. So according to my view, in some respects, Gravitate is one of the most premier sought after marketing agencies in Vancouver, Washington. They do business all across the nation. At times, I wanted to replicate some of my services after Gravitate. So they are a leader in this spot and space and industry. Don is being very humble, but he obviously, as you can tell, why he's on the show is because he's humble. He's a great guy, and he has a phenomenal story. And so, Don, I know, as you guys all know, we don't have a script. We don't practice. There's no preventive. So as we talk about this topic about running a marketing agency in potentially a recession, can you first tell the listeners like how you got into marketing and what's it like running a small business, especially a marketing agency?
Yeah. So early on, around late 90s, kind of fell into an opportunity to start running a nonprofit. And then that expanded to doing consulting for nonprofits, which expanded to doing consulting for small businesses mainly around North Portland, but really the Portland area in general. What I found in doing that was most of the businesses were good at what they did. So if it was a music school, they taught music really well. If it was a restaurant, they made the food great. Where they suffered the most and the most consistently was in their marketing. And so what we'd find when we'd go into like when Mississippi Street was being revitalized, that we'd go and work with the businesses there, that where they lacked consistently was how to present themselves, how to tell their story. So in doing that, a friend of mine he was in the creative space. He was an amazing designer. And so we decided with another guy to go in and just start our own agency to service those needs. So that would have been in the early 2000s. So the first business was we went through the 2001, after 9/11, there was a downturn in the economy then. After that, we
Right.
went through the dot-com bubble burst. Following that was 2008. So I sold my shares in that first agency in 2007 and then started Elliott Design in 2008. May. So right in the heart at the, sort of the beginning of the Great Recession. Great time to start a business. So straight into the fire with that one. And then Gravitate actually bought Elliott Design in 2012 for me. And then I took over Gravitate for a few
Mm.
years. And then I left in 2016 and did consulting for other agencies. So I went for a few years without employees and consulted with other agencies and small businesses. And in the meantime, Gravitate went through a phase where they came into a position where I was able to come back and purchase Gravitate. So I bought Gravitate 2 weeks before quarantine, March 2nd of 2020.
Wow, that's crazy, man. You didn't tell me that when we met for coffee the other day. Okay, okay, okay. My bad, my bad, my bad. I got it. Okay, all right.
You got my
So this is
secrets.
very interesting. I did not. Yeah, you do. Yeah, absolutely, you do. I'm just trying to build the foundation for the listeners, but that's pretty cool. I didn't know that about you. So as you, oh my gosh, that's crazy. Then you bought it a couple of weeks before quarantine. And I know for me during that time, my birthday is March 14th, and so it was a Saturday. It was even somewhat snowing, and my wife wanted to take me out, and we were like, well, we knew like we were gonna go under kind of like not lockdown, but it was lockdown, not lockdown, stay at home order. So we really didn't have a place to go to, but I remember that time specifically not only because it was my birthday and I really couldn't do anything special. I remember coming back to the office and it's a Regis office. So like folks come and go. And it was the most craziest thing I've ever seen there. It was like literally a scene from out of a horror movie where people were running because that Monday was the last day you could work in the office before the stay at home order went into effect. And I've never seen so many people there, so I couldn't imagine you just buying a business, which I think is that when you just bought that property just right across the atrium from us, that new
Not,
property. I know you just moved.
yeah, not quite that point. That was about 2.5, 3 years later, I guess it would be. Yeah, 3 years later. So, but we ordered 30 new desks when I bought the company to accommodate all the people. Actually, I think it was 20. But in any case, they were delivered the day of quarantine, like the first day of it. And so we had 30
Wow.
boxes of desks and chairs that just basically sat there for months before before we were able to move in back into that space. So it was a pretty wild time.
Wow. So what was that experience like then? Go of running the company that you used to work at or used to own and you bought it back. What was that like? And then if you could also share with the listeners, which I didn't do in your intro, of explaining the services that you do in regards to how you make money.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that part, in a nutshell, is we what we say is we build and grow the digital ecosystem, which ultimately means we design and build websites and we do digital marketing. And when I say digital marketing, when you search for something and an ad starts to follow you around on all the different channels and you're a little creeped out, but then you end up buying it. So we're the ones that make sure they're buying your product instead of anybody else's. So that's ultimately what we do. As far as the experience, it was definitely, it was very exciting. A lot of the staff had been there when I was there previously, so it felt like coming home in a lot of ways. But it was,
Mm.
instantly faced with, oh, what do we do? So I had a CEO in
Oh,
place,
so you
a guy
can't
named
curse. No,
Colton.
no cursing. No cursing. No
Oh,
cursing. No
sorry.
cursing. You gotta bleep that.
I'm horrible at that.
No
Bleep me
problem.
out.
My bad. My bad.
Um, Yeah,
That's my fault.
no worries. But so I had a CEO in place named Colton Tidwell, who was absolutely fantastic. But during
Oh,
that time,
mm-hmm.
he had some family issues come up and he had to move back to Salt Lake City. So I had to step back into the role. So there was quite a bit of transition. And those first several months were real rough and real touch and go in a lot of ways. But after that, in about a year and a half, we doubled the size of the business to being more profitable and higher gross than any time in its 24-year history. So it was real rough at first, but then we
Wow.
really took off after that.
Wow. That's crazy. So
Yeah.
then, as we coming up on this new opportunity, aka recession, uh, what what have you learned from being in the marketing one industry, also running a business? Like, what are some tips or some insights or best practices that you can give
Well,
the
one of the things
listeners?
I always do, and just for context, I've been through as a business owner pretty much every downturn or recession since 2000, 2001.
Mm,
And
just great.
most of the time, I either bought or sold a business right during those times. In every one of those moments, and really anytime I face a big challenge, the very first thing I do is pull out a piece of paper and just write down every option I can think of. Bad options, good options. And I challenge myself to get creative and just put everything on the table.
Mm,
And by doing that activity, you instantly depressure yourself. Like you lose a lot of the stress and anxiety because now you see you have options. And if you have options, you can make a smart choice. But you have to be creative. You have to sit down with a piece of paper and really, what can I do? What are the possible options here? And it is everything on the table. You've got to get it out of your head and you've got to get that release in place.
mm, mm.
From
That's
there,
good.
for me, every one of these recessions, if we just use that term broadly, have had their own flavor, but this one's different than all the other ones. The other ones, there was always a clear culprit, tech industry, banking, a virus.
Mm,
But this one there's a lot more fear involved in this one, and it's dragging on a lot longer than I've ever seen before because it's so complicated and there's not a clear bad guy and there's wars going on. And it's just a really tense time. So fear is really high. Consumer spending is up,
mm,
but consumer sentiment is down. And normally those lines are kind of going like this. They're totally separating right now, which is a really
hmm,
strange indicator. So for me, I look at times of rapid growth. When you're looking at a potential downturn or you're in a downturn, you always want growth to stay on your mind. If you're not growing, you're dying kind of thing, or at least staying.
right.
But it's not a time for rapid growth because when you do rapid growth, you're cutting into your profits in order to sustain that rapid
Mm,
growth, with the hopes it'll be even more profitable later. But during that growth period, you're adding risk because you're cutting into capital, you're cutting into profits. So you're adding risk at a time when you need to be risk averse. And so
hmm, mhm,
what I see from the marketing side, and marketing is considered kind of the canary in the coal mine for downturns, but we tend to bounce back quicker as
mhm,
well. Although this current turn, marketing's been being hit hard for over a year now, which is unusual. But the reason it happens, unfortunately, is because, and small businesses in particular suffer from this, it's because you look at your budget and you say, what are the non-essentials here? And you frame marketing as non-essential because marketing has no effect on your ability to deliver the product. It doesn't have an effect on, employee morale or retention necessarily, but it is essential. And so what happens is a small business will say, or even some larger ones will say, oh crap, I see this coming. I'm scared. So let's just start cutting costs everywhere. We'll come back to marketing later. But what happens is at that time, that's when you need marketing the most because that's what's bringing you your income. And so at a time when the income's going down, to cut the source of your income is not the right move.
mm,
But the majority of people do
mm.
it
Great.
because they don't necessarily know better.
Oh my gosh. So true.
So the other advantage is you can take advantage of that because so many people are pulling their marketing dollars and their advertising dollars. You can be more competitive with a smaller, keeping your budget the same or even lowering your budget because if your competitors aren't marketing and you are, your ad cost is down, your reach is broader, and
Mhm,
you get all this face time with
mhm.
people when the other people are just falling off. So I would argue marketing is essential and is absolutely something that cannot be cut when you're going into a downturn.
So, for the last couple of minutes, because I know we're at our time, for those that believe they don't believe in marketing, what would you
First thing
say
is I'll
to
say
them?
something most marketers don't want to hear is that there are businesses where marketing is just a baseline thing that you need to do. And it is about sales and relationships and
It's
things like
true.
that. But they are outliers. If you think about your business being a store on a street, do you want to be on the busy street or do you want to be on the street nobody walks on? Marketing is your positioning. It shows you where the crowd is, it puts you in front of the crowd. And so it's great that you have a shop that sells beautiful candles, but if nobody walks down that street, it doesn't matter what you did. Whereas marketing marketing in a nutshell, for me, there's two things that make a business successful: management and marketing. The product doesn't actually matter. The product is a catalyst for good or for evil, but you can have a crappy product and great marketing and you'll succeed. You can have a great product and crappy
Mm.
marketing and you'll fail. And you see that time and time again throughout, history. So yeah, that's what I'd say.
Whew. I was just telling my daughters that this weekend when we try to buy something that we bought something that was heavily promoted to us and advertised to us specifically for us. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna give it a try. I'm like, I will never buy this again because they have a crappy product. But hey, their marketing is phenomenal. You gotta give them that. So for the
Yeah,
listeners out there that want to learn more, oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah, and if you set up the marketing so that people know that they're buying, Walmart doesn't sell high end. They advertise that they sell low end. And so it sets your expectation.
Yes.
So you go in knowing like this isn't going to be the best product, but I'm going to get a good price for it.
Right. And it's crazy that in marketing books, marketing strategy, fundamentals concept is called the EDLP, everyday low price. And they just put that on their signage. So they didn't like do anything creative or special to have you think outside. They didn't even mask it. It was everyday low price.
Yeah, it was honest. It was honest
So,
marketing.
really, truly, yeah, absolutely. All right. So, for the listeners out there that want to learn more about you as Don Elliott, as you as the brains behind the marketing agency, but also the marketing agency Gravitate, which I know we've had Alan and oh man, I can't remember the other guy's name from Cali. They were on here and we did a special, or we did a not special episode on ROAS, return on ad spend. But where can they find you now? What links can they go to, and where can they contact you at?
So Gravitate is gravitatedesign.com, and our social handles are pretty much just Gravitate Design wherever you go. For me, I'm Don is Flying for the basic socials. I'm not super active, so you can expect pictures of dogs and flowers hiking. But yeah, if you want to reach out, that's the way to find me.
All right. So I will say you are on LinkedIn. I can share that, right?
Yes,
Is LinkedIn a good spot for them?
and that one's just Don
Okay.
Elliott.
I'll
Yeah, 2 L's, two
okay.
T's.
All right. I'll make sure to put this in the show notes. And so, Don, I appreciate you coming on the show, my man. I know you have a lot more to talk about because initially we were going to talk about AI. So it looks like you got to come back.
Yep, plenty to talk about AI with.
All right. Cool, man. Well, thank you again for coming on the show. And for my listeners out there, you know the drill of how to go about with the rating and review. Come on, y'all. We got to do this. We got to get more than just 21 reviews. And then for all my listeners, thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning into the show. And so with that, I wish you nothing but the best. So dream big and Godspeed.